they. I don't think they'll be picking out any furniture together soon. There is not much of a bromance between them. So it has. It's fascinating that the guy who has really no military experience, Netanyahu, is the one dictating what the military should be doing, whereas the guy with the actual military experience is saying, "Oh, wait a second, we need to rethink this." So Netanyahu's leading Israel into a path of destruction, I believe. Nobody's going to kill their way to peace. Ultimately, there's going to have to be some negotiation, some concessions, some surrender on the part of someone. And until that happens, they're just going to continue to kill and escalate. This is, the people of Israel folks aren't flocking to live there right now because they recognize the dangers and where it's headed. So here's Gallant with you got a visible split now between the defense establishment and the political establishment, and they're supposed to fight a war, which usually requires a unity of effort, not division. So this is a troubling sign.
Larry, do you think that this new tensions that we're witnessing, I don't know if we were talking about these tensions for more than a year, since the October 7th, for more than 10 months that we were talking about this. It seems right now it's much more serious than before.
Yes.
What's the reason of this particular moment? They're fighting each other right now.
Well, I think it goes to the struggle that the Israelis are having in the field defeating Hamas. Think about it. Israel has every advantage. They may not necessarily outnumber the Palestinians, but they certainly have far more weapons, both from rifles, pistols, up to tanks, anti-tank guided missiles, aircraft, both helicopters, fixed wing. I mean, Israel has every single advantage you could want. The only thing the Palestinians have is that they are guerrilla fighters. They are hidden amidst civilians, and it's not like they can go someplace. I mean, they're trapped within a confined area. And with all of those advantages, Israel is suffering losses, and they can't beat these guys. So, I think that's starting to weigh up on people like Gallant. Recognize that they can't continue to operate with those kinds of losses, because the psychological impact apparently is far greater than the physical impact. They're suffering, people suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and other, some just weighed down heavily with guilt for what they've done, for the abuses that they've imposed upon the Palestinian people.
It's been a week we were talking about Iran going to attack Israel. What's going on right now? And why Iran is so hesitant? Or do they have something in their mind to achieve before attacking Israel?
Well, which is it? Are they hesitant because they are fearful? They've sat down and counted out the potential cost to them in the region and said, well, no, we don't want to do that. Or are they simply taking their time to prepare a response? You're not, I don't even think you were born yet, but maybe you were, when the United States shot down the Iran Airbus. And that was like 1987, 88. And it was an accident, but Iran vowed revenge. Well, although Libya was formally blamed for the bombing of Pan Am 103, there are many who believe that Iran carried out its revenge, sort of an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, in planning and helping that get that bombing up and running. So they waited for more than a year. I don't know how long Iran is going to wait, but I think some of it has to do with they're making preparations to fend off an Israeli response, Israeli retaliation. Because I think Iran is fully expecting that they're going to hit Israel, and they fully expect Israel to retaliate and try to hit Iran, and Iran's going to make sure that they're ready to deal with the Israeli threat.
And Larry, in your opinion, how do you see the role of Russia right now? Do you think they're trying to just support Iran and just saying that this operation should be the way, that not killing civilians, damaging a lot of infrastructures? What's their official position, in your opinion?
No, Russia clearly is one of the adults in the room, but I would argue so is Iran. Iran is not acting emotionally. Iran is acting rationally. And they're weighing, they're trying to figure out what is it that we're trying to do. If all we're trying to do is just extract a pound of flesh as vengeance, that doesn't settle the situation in the region. It means the fighting is going to continue. I think one of the things Iran is trying to achieve is to hit Israel in a way that it will convince Israel that they don't want to mess with Iran anymore. They'll leave them alone. I don't know if that's possible, but that's sort of the hope, the strategy there. This is the preparations that Russia is making on behalf of Iran includes, likely air defense systems like the S-400, which are capable of shooting down ballistic missiles. You also have electronic warfare setups that can be employed, because if nothing else, make it difficult for Iran or Israel and or the United States to hit Iran. Plus, let's not forget the military relationship between Iran and Russia, as well as China, has been well underway for at least the last, I'd say, 6 years. We know that they conducted a joint military naval exercise for the first time, I believe it was summer of 2019. So that's 5 years ago. Well, anybody knows anything about planning those types of military exercises knows that it's usually a 6 to 12 month planning process just to get one of those up and running. So that means that Russia, China, and Iran were all talking about cooperating militarily way back in 2018, and maybe before that. So you don't have that kind of talk, cooperation, and activities. Then for something, the Iran to face this threat and Russia to bail out, say, "Oh, see you later, keep us out of this." No, they're directly involved, and I think Russia's goal would be to try to keep this from becoming a broader war or expanding into a nuclear war.
The other thing that with these changes, presidential change, we have new president in Iran, and many people were thinking that he's gonna change in Iranian policy, but it doesn't seem. He's picking each and everybody. It seems the same kind of people that were working with President Raisi in those days. And with the picture that I'm witnessing right now, I don't see Iran would make any changes in their policy in getting closer to Russia and China. It seems that they're on the same track.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, the new president is described. I heard Professor Morandi describe him as a traditional liberal or traditional leftist. So he's not driven by, he's not a religious ideologue. He's not driven by trying to implement the Quran or whatever. He is, but he is a patriot nonetheless of Iran. So part of it is that he's still putting the government together. Pezeshkian?
Pezeshkian. Yeah.
Say it again?
Pezeshkian. Yeah.
Oh, Pezeshkian. Okay.
Yeah. It's Pezeshkian.
Pezeshkian. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank God we got a native speaker. The United States, I don't think, has a good understanding of this strategic relationship between Russia and China. Russia and China, they're not eager to start a war with the United States. And I think they're doing everything in their power to keep these conflicts from escalating, because they recognize, Russia in particular, recognizes the cost it has to Russia. But it is it's a sort of a new phase. I guess it's new in this sense that Iran is no longer isolated, and it's got the backing of Russia and China in a potential confrontation with the United States. So, I mean, that changes the calculation for Iran. Before, it was Iran like, okay, just going to be us against the world. And now that's not the case. I think that's significant.
Yeah. And the other thing, Larry, would be this, how right now when you look at the picture of the Middle East and the way that the United States is trying to send everything to the Middle East in order to help Israelis. And we've learned that they sent a submarine there. And what do you understand of what's going on right now on the part of the United States? What they're trying to do, in your opinion?
Candidly, I don't know. It's almost like they're trying to provoke a war. But they're very reactive. So it's not proactive. Because, look what happened with, the Houthis have successfully defeated the U.S. Navy. I mean, how else do you describe it? Because the Navy shows up off the shore in the person of a carrier task force group to stop the Houthis from, hitting ships with missiles and keeping the Red Sea closed. Well, we're now into the 9th month of this year, and this operation started the second week of December. Think of it this way. I've made 3 trips to Russia in this time, back and forth, okay? And in that time frame, the United States has not been able to stop the Houthis from launching their attacks. And the Houthis, that's a victory. So, they're sending a submarine. Well, the only thing a submarine can do is launch ballistic missiles. That starts World War III. Those missiles are, going to carry nuclear warheads. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time to have the submarines do that. They're not, and the naval vessels are not an effective standoff weapon, candidly. We saw this 1983 when you had the battleships. I think the New Jersey was still operational then. throwing these massive shells into the Bekaa Valley. It was killing Lebanese Muslims. And what did they achieve? They got the U.S. Embassy blown up twice, and a bunch of Marines killed in a bombing of the base where they were staying. We called it the Barrage. But so here comes the United States again to want to try to throw bombs, drop bombs, send cruise missiles. It's just going to lead to further blowback. So I don't think the United States has thought this through in terms of saying, what's our strategic objective? When this is all done, where do we want to be? What is it that we want? It'd be one thing they said, hey, our goal is to get Israel and all of the Arab nations to live in peace. That all the other the Arab and Muslim nations will recognize Israel's right to exist, and Israel will stop humiliating and stealing from the Palestinian people.
There are a lot of rumors, Larry, talking about that Iran and the United States are talking or negotiating behind the scene. Is there any reality in these rumors?
I doubt it, because I don't think Iran is now there. I think there were talks before, but Iran no longer trusts the United States. There were talks in April convincing Iran, okay, don't hit the Israelis hard. Let's launch launch some drones, launch your cruise missiles, maybe a ballistic missile or two, so you can show that you can hit them. Do that as a demonstration, and we'll get Israel to stop doing all this craziness. And Iran said, okay, we'll do that, which is what they did. And then Israel comes back 2 months later, assassinating Hezbollah leader in Beirut, and then killing the Hamas Haniya, the Politburo chief of Hamas in Tehran. And I think Israel, the Iranians just said they're up to here. They've had it. They're fed up with Israel. They've got to teach them a lesson so that they stop this.
If we assume that there is a negotiation going on, there are some negotiations going on between Iran and the United States. The question would be, what has the United States to offer for such negotiations, and how is there any leverage on the Netanyahu administration as at this particular moment that there is a lot of tensions right now in the Netanyahu administration? Do they have, the Biden administration, do they have any sort of leverage right now to put some sort of pressure on the Netanyahu administration in order to achieve a deal with Iran?
No, I don't think they have any. The political costs of reigning in Israel are too great, and the Republicans certainly aren't going to support it, and a significant number of the Democrats are not going to support such a move. So Israel's really got free run. Israel can get away with whatever it wants to do, and it's not going to be punished. That's the message that's coming out. And the United States should be clearer about, hey, this is what we want. This is the kind of world we're trying to create. We did it before. You remember the Suez crisis? What was that, 54? And, Britain, France, and Israel got together and, we're going to take over the Suez Canal and defeat the Egyptians. And we stepped in and said, no, everyone back in your holes.
Yeah. And how do you find right now, do you think that the Biden administration would withdraw the U.S. troops in Iraq? Or they're just talking about this? Because Iraq is so important, gives the support to Syria. Syria gives the support to Israel. This goes from one country to other to help Israel.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure Syria's helping Israel now. if you're just using that as an example of how it might work. But the U.S. is, it's going to be, it will have to be compelled to change its policy to get those troops out of there. And, if war does break out and the U.S. starts suffering significant casualties, I could see the U.S. starting to pull back on some of its bases, because to have over 600 bases around the country, around the world, that's a significant number, and it's a real drain, and frankly, it puts you in potential conflict. We're seeing with with the rise of BRICS, and particularly their BRICS cultivation of Africa, the Africans rising up and kicking out their colonial masters, which includes the United States. So the United States had been counting on having some bases in places, I believe, like Mali, and now that's over. So we're just looking at a situation where U.S. is losing influence on so many different fronts that I don't see it reversing course and coming out with a more positive message. And then even, there's not even a clear strategic vision. What is it that they're trying to do?
Yeah. And shifting the gear to the conflict in Ukraine, Larry, Lindsey Graham is talking about that the conflict, what's going on in Kursk region, is just brilliant, beautiful. And Zelensky is talking about it, Putin's end. Kursk is Putin's end. What's going on, in your opinion, in that region?
This was, I think, part of a pre-planned NATO operation that they were going to do a simultaneous. One goal is to seize control of the Kursk nuclear power plant. Whether that meant by having it surrounded or just being close enough that you could shell it if necessary, have fire control over it, and then use that as leverage to try to force the Russians to give up Zaporizhia, put Zaporizhia back in the hands of the Ukrainians. They said, we'll give you Kursk back if you give us Zaporizhia back. Well, the difference is the Ukrainians don't have the manpower to sustain a presence even 30 kilometers from that nuclear power plant. So they're in real trouble. This was supposed to be a quick raid. The numbers I've heard were 2,000 to 3,000. So maybe a brigade, full complement of a brigade. But at least 1,400 of them are dead now. It's, you can't sustain those kinds of losses. 50, 60% casualty rate or higher, and stay combat effective. So, but that, that attack started, I guess, on Monday, last Monday, or was it last Friday? But it is, the Russians rapidly moved troops and reinforcements to the area. And so that's led to an increased killing of the Ukrainian forces and blowing up their tanks and their armored vehicles, etc. They will, I don't see how they sustain themselves there, because the soldiers have to be fed. They're shooting off ammunition. They have to be resupplied with new ammunition. So unless Ukraine has a way to resupply them, they're already being chewed up, but they'll be destroyed. And it's not like they went in there with a lot of guys. There was a small number, and yet the West is so busy trying to put lipstick on this pig and make it look pretty that, oh my God, they're celebrating it like they're Germans at the first week of the Battle of the Bulge. Yeah, we win, yay us.
And you think that Lindsey Graham is trying to do everything at his disposal to help them, in your opinion? Why he's trying to call it beautiful, brilliant, if the Ukrainians are getting killed?
Maybe he's hoping he'll get an invite with one of those big sweaty men who can give him a back rub or something. Who knows? You know, Graham is he's evidence of the problem with the U.S. military. Just out of touch with reality, believing anything that he's told and not looking at the other facts. Like, we've got these reports of reliable casualties, no casualty figures. No army in the world can operate with those kinds of numbers. Yet he persists in portraying it as, oh yeah, no big deal. We're winning. We're victory is ours. He did it, if you saw his speech yesterday, I believe. Man, he's rattling off all the places in the Donbass that they're winning, that they're not. It's just a lie, but he's telling it.
I think what's going on, Larry, in the Kursk region and the way that NATO is just managing the whole situation, Russia would be so serious about what's going on in the Middle East and what they're going to do in the Middle East, because they have to find a way in order to make the United States understand what's going on, and they cannot continue this way of behaving then. Well,
Russia and China are, I think, both looking at it in terms of also the oil situation. I don't think either want to blow up the world economy. So I think they're doing what they can to try to bring peace, but it's the United States who's the aggressor here. The United States could stop this war in Israel tomorrow, just cut off the aid. But it politically can't happen because the Jewish lobby is just so strong in this country that anybody that would attempt that would, they'd be out of power, out of government, and potentially out of business. So there, a lot of people just shy away from it.
Is the situation in the Middle East escalating to a greater war? Because right now, Larry, it seems that we have everything to have a big war in that region.
Right. Yeah, no, it's not cooling at all. There are reports that Israel is redeploying some key missile systems up to the north on the border with Lebanon. So they may very well be prepping their attack on Lebanon. I don't see any way out of this. There are ways out, but they would be viewed by the Israelis as disadvantageous to them. But so be it. Instead, they're going to set the place on fire. It's like to save the house, they're going to burn it to the ground.
Yeah. Just to wrap up this session, Larry, do you think that the Biden administration at this particular moment is getting to the point to risk a greater war in the Middle East for the sake of what Netanyahu wants to do against Gazans?
I think the problem is you're assuming that Biden and them have a clear course or clear plan. Their only hope is that they can try to control Netanyahu, which has proved to be an elusive task, and keep him from destroying Democrat chances for re-election, for creating a political issue. But I think it's highly likely that the conflicts both in Israel, in Lebanon, in Iran, that's going to spread. That's not going to stay confined in the next couple of months. And as that happens, it's going to really create some dramatic turmoil back here in the United States.
Would that bring Turkey into the conflict?
Yes, potentially. Yeah, that's another one of those wild cards that Turkey says, we're not going to stand by and let these Muslims be killed like this.
Yeah, that would be it's too NATO countries against each other fighting.
Yeah.
Even at the margins, Turkey, if decides to provide weapons, to provide intelligence, that would be huge.
Yeah, but just let's remember as well the Turkish fighters are pretty tough and they're well trained, so they're not a bunch of runaways.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Larry, for being with us today.
Hey man, always a pleasure to be with you.
Great to talk with you.
All right, thanks so much.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.